January 3rd, 2026. Several fighter jets from the US Air Force are rapidly approaching Venezuela. Their mission is to clear a safe path for a small group of helicopters that are currently flying just 30 meters above the sea level to avoid radar detection. Inside them is the 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, better known as Delta Force, the US most elite fighting unit. They've got a quite special mission today: capture the Venezuelan dictator Nicolás Maduro Moros and his wife Celia Flores, who are currently sleeping in the country's most important and heavily guarded military compound. But how exactly did we get here? In order to understand that, we first need a little bit of context. You see, on March 26, 2020, Nicolás Maduro, along with other important figures of the Venezuelan government, was formally indicted by a federal grand jury in the US during President Donald Trump's first administration. They were accused of being the leaders of the Cartel de los Soles, running a narco-terrorism partnership with Colombian guerrilla groups like the FARC, flooding the United States with tons of cocaine for over 20 years. This charge came accompanied with a $15 million reward for information leading to Maduro's capture. Time passed and tension just kept growing, especially after 2024's clear electoral fraud in Venezuela that allowed Maduro and his circle to stay in power, even though the opposition had clearly beaten them. On January 10, 2025, now under President Joe Biden's administration, the bounty increased to $25 million. And later that year, in August 7, again under President Trump's now second administration, the reward doubled up to $50 million, the highest reward the US has ever offered, even surpassing the ones offered for Osama bin Laden after the 9/11 attacks. In mid-August 2025, President Donald Trump ordered the deployment of naval forces to the Caribbean Sea, sending the USS Iwo Jima and its amphibious-ready group, with the excuse of fighting drug smuggling to the US by Latin American narco-terrorists. By September 3rd, strikes against narco boats and vessels began, killing various traffickers attempting to get drugs into the US. On November 16, Cartel de los Soles was designated as a foreign terrorist organization by the US Department of State. When a group is designated as an FTO, it is considered as a threat to the US national security, allowing the government to legally take further action against it. The same day, the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group entered the Caribbean Sea, increasing the military buildup near Venezuela. Months prior to the operation, in early August of 2025, the CIA infiltrated a small group of spies into Caracas. Their goal was to observe and analyze Maduro's every move. Along with a high-level informant inside Maduro's inner circle, very likely motivated by the $50 million reward, they managed to collect every single detail of his daily routine after months of observation. This is called pattern of life intelligence and includes meal hours, sleep schedules, what he eats, what he wears, and even how many pets he has and details about them. And on top of that, literally, an RQ-170 Sentinel reconnaissance drone observed Caracas at an altitude of 50,000 feet, about 15,000 meters. Thanks to this incredible intelligence performance, US elite troops were able to create a full-scale replica of Maduro's safe house in Kentucky, where they were able to practice the raid hundreds of times, getting familiar with the exact layout of the place. But there was a little bit of a problem in Washington. You see, such an operation can result legally complex for multiple reasons. For example, what if the mission ends up being considered as a violation of international laws? Can the president alone authorize such an operation without notifying it to the Congress and getting its approval? The whole mission could be stopped, cancelled, or even considered illegal if these questions weren't legally solved. By December 23, a confidential memorandum from the US Department of Justice clarified the situation. In simple words, the memorandum stated that even if the operation later turns out to be considered as a violation of international law, that doesn't invalidate presidential authority under US domestic law. It also stated that as long as the operation had the goal of capturing Maduro instead of killing him, it was completely legal. Apart from that, the document clarified that not every use of military force constitutes war, classifying the military action as part of law enforcement application. And since it couldn't be legally considered as a war attack or declaration, the Congress approval wasn't necessary, meaning the president could authorize it completely by himself. 2 days later, on December 25, the operation was authorized by President Donald Trump. But despite the presidential authorization, there was one obstacle remaining: the weather. For an operation like this, the weather is critical, so the heavy rain and the dense cloud cover in the Caribbean postponed the mission several days. Finally, on Friday evening, January 2nd, the weather cleared just enough, allowing the conditions the pilots needed to execute the mission. President Trump was surrounded by the CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, General Dan Kane, the Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and other important men of the US government inside a war room at his Mar-a-Lago club, ready to watch the operation unfold in real time. At 10:46 p.m., President Trump issued the final go order, followed by a good luck and Godspeed. After that, more than 150 aircraft took off from 20 bases across the US, Puerto Rico, and the naval ships in the Caribbean. This included F-22 Raptors, F-35 Fighting IIs, EA-18G Growlers, B-1B bombers, MH-60M Block Hawks DAB, and MH-47G Block II Chinooks, each with a specific objective to be accomplished. In order to understand why there were so many types of aircraft involved, we first need to comprehend the needs of the assault. The core goal of the mission was to get a group of helicopters into Caracas, extract Maduro and his wife, and get out of there safely. To do so, it was first mandatory to take down all enemy's air defenses and seize the airspace, clearing a safe path for the helicopters. It was also critical to destroy command centers and communication systems of the anti-aircraft batteries. This is where the B-1B lancers and fighter jets like the F-35 Lightning II and F-22 Raptor come into play. The F-35 Lightning II is a stealth multi-role fighter jet specialized in battle space awareness. Its mission is to spot and map enemy radars, air defenses, and communication infrastructure using its advanced sensors, and then it can decide whether to destroy them or feed all the other aircraft with that data, like the B-1B Lancer. This is a high-payload precision strike platform with a capacity of 75,000 pounds or 34,000 kilograms, specialized in deploying precision-guided munitions that use guidance tail kits like the JDAM or LJDAM. In simple words, this bad guy can carry 34 metric tons of pure munition and deploy GPS and laser-guided bombs to strike targets with surgical precision. Just think about it. That's simply insane. These were likely used to deliver most of the strikes at strategic points, such as La Guaira Port, Higuerota Airport, Huaycaipuro Fort, La Carlota Air Base, and Fort Tiuna, disabling Venezuela's air control. They were likely also responsible for neutralizing vital communication antennas for the Venezuelan military, like the ones installed in El Volcan Communications Array, as well as the Venezuelan Institute of Scientific Research. The F-22 Raptor is arguably the greatest air superiority aircraft in the world. These were used to escort all the other aircraft in their respective tasks. While it's not fully confirmed, it's suspected the US made use of the Lucas, low-cost uncrewed combat attack system. These are cost-efficient one-way attack drones designed for mass production. In other words, kamikaze drones designed to swarm the enemy defenses, distracting them from the high-value targets. These might have been used to overwhelm any surviving enemy air defense systems like the Russian Buk M2E. If they were actually used, this would likely be their first use in real combat. Then entered the EA-18G Growler. Its task was to suppress remaining radars and air defenses using the data collected by the F-35s. You see, this jet is specialized on electronic warfare tactics, specifically what's known as radar jamming and deception. which means overwhelming enemy radars by sending deceptive radio signals to its receivers, resulting in oversaturated radars displaying fake targets or none at all, leaving them completely useless. President Trump would later say, "We had a fighter jet for every possible situation." Meanwhile, the helicopters were likely entering from the north, flying just 30 meters off the ground through Venezuela's complex and mountainous terrain, something that could only be pulled off by the best pilots on the planet. These are the 168th Special Operations Aviation Regiment Airborne, famously known as the Night Stalkers, an elite aviation unit specialized in high-risk missions, usually conducted at night, high speeds, low altitude, and of course challenging terrains. They're piloting MH-47G Chinooks Block II. These are heavy-lift helicopters designed for the transportation of troops, ammunition, fuel, and supplies, made for special operations, insertions, and extractions. They're also piloting MH-60 Black Hawk DAPs. This is a heavily modified version of the standard Black Hawk, specialized in air support for high-risk operations. Once the airspace was seized, the helicopters surrounded Caracas and entered from the south, straight over Fort Tiuna, the country's most important military compound, which was now immersed in complete darkness thanks to the attacks on electrical supply centers. The Delta operators rapidly descended from the Chinook helicopters to the rooftop of the safe house, while the Black Hawk's DAP cleared the perimeter, eliminating immediate threats. The Delta Force made their way inside the fortress by blowing reinforced steel doors. Maduro and his wife rushed to the presidential safety room, a shelter with a heavy steel door meant to be used as the last resort. Meanwhile, Delta Force executed the assault in no time, neutralizing threats and advancing at an incredible pace, all as a result of practicing the raid hundreds of times in the Kentucky full-scale replica. As they got closer to their objective, they stumbled upon the last obstacle, the so-called Black Wasps, the Cuban special forces that acted as Maduro's personal guards. And even though it was a fierce shooting, Delta's higher expertise in advanced night vision equipment proved superior, neutralizing every single one of them in just a matter of seconds. They were so fast that they managed to catch Maduro just in time, when he was about to close the shelter's door. That door was so heavy that not even him could close it in time. The Delta operators were even equipped with blowtorches in case they had to pass through the fortified steel shelter door to get Maduro. But that wasn't even necessary. Velocity and precision ended up being the most effective weapon. Maduro and his wife surrendered. They were mounted in one of the Chinook helicopters and flown out of the country. They were transported to the USS Iwo Jima, where they were given a change of clothes, then to Guantanamo Bay in Cuba, and from there flown straight to New York to appear before American justice. The operation was a complete success from the military point of view, with no casualties from the US side, with just a few soldiers injured. The number of casualties from the Venezuelan side is not confirmed, ranging from 23 up to 100. All the 32 Cubans that protected Maduro died too. One of them was even responsible for Fidel Castro's personal security in the past. And unfortunately, 2 civilians were killed during the mission. I want to send much love to all the Venezuelans out there. I really hope you can get back home and reunite with your family soon. Thanks for watching, and I see you in the next one.